Hi. Hi, I'm Tim Brundle. I'm the Director of Research and Innovation at Ulster University. Delighted to be here today, but I'm going to start with 3 apologies. First apology is that, like the previous speaker, I also have the cold, so I'm avoiding the roving mic. Second apology is for the title of this presentation. Just after Christmas, I had lunch with one of our heads of IT at Ulster, who suggested that with REF being out of the way, I could really go and sit down for the next 5 years. He then titled this presentation and put me on this agenda. So second is that apology. The third apology is for the conclusions of this presentation. I am going to be presenting to you with a perspective as someone who runs a research and innovation support department, and the conclusions of this presentation are going to be entirely obvious to all of you. But I'll take you a step through from my own perspective. So with respect to what I really wanted to talk about today, it was really 3 things. It was the blurred lines that are emerging within the university between university computing, the university computing services. Sitting underneath all of this, the roles that the university is developing in terms of REF impact and in innovation, and the blurred lines between impact and innovation. And lastly, between these activities and what the research environment means today and what we've learnt about the research environment post-REF. So, to start us off, the obligatory a few words about Ulster University. So Ulster University formed in 1849. Our McGee College is celebrating its 150th anniversary this year. The new University of Ulster in Coleraine on the very north coast, for those of you who know the Bushmills Distillery or the Giant's Causeway, it's just beside both of those. It was founded in 1968. We had an Ulster Polytechnic formed in 1971, and these entities came together through a merger in 1984. Ulster University then went through an exercise in 2014 to move from the University of Ulster to Ulster University. So as far as the size and shape of the university, we're on 4 distributed campuses across Northern Ireland. So we have a campus in Belfast, we have a campus in Jordanstown, which is about 7 miles outside Belfast. On that campus is our largest campus at present. We have the Coleraine campus I mentioned a moment ago, beside the Bushmills Distillery. And then in Derry, we have our McGee College, our McGee campus of Ulster University. So about 26,500 students, 4,000 students on validated courses elsewhere. Research and innovation income for this year will be just over 64 million. And we are part of a £300 million campus redevelopment programme at this moment, which I'll talk about as part of this presentation. As far as REF is concerned and our research performance, you will all have seen these statements produced by your respective universities. Some of you will have been involved in crafting these statements. Again, we saw improvements from 2014 over 2008. We have world-leading research and 20 units of assessment. We're in the top 10 for architecture and built environment, art, design and law, biomed, law and nursing. And I'll touch on that and the relevance of all of that again in a moment. When it comes to the data, because the data is, I find, more interesting, when you look at the GPA score, where we sit is somewhere between the UK university average and the Russell Group average. So 3.21 GPA score average for the Russell Group. We're at 2.91, and the UK university average is 2.56. And we're advancing and have plans to advance in that respect. And again, the same positioning sits within research power, and that gives us a positioning within the top 25% of UK universities. Now, post-REF, what we've been doing, like many other universities, is working on a research strategy. We're working on a research innovation strategy for Ulster University at present. Now, After the REF submission, I was appointed into this position. I was previously in a commercial role with the university, leading on our investment strategy, on our spin-out activity, on our work with business. I jumped over into this role early on in 2014, set about a review, and that review began to look at a number of elements. So it was looking at the entire support structures for all activities relating to research, innovation, enterprise, investment, impact right across the university. I broke it down into a number of constituent elements. So broke it down into finance budgets, benchmarks and targets, policies, procedures, webs, marketing, information management, pulled all that together to look at the peoples and roles right across the university and put together an operations plan for the university. So we're doing this whilst the REF evaluation, as the REF panels are doing their work. Pulled together an operations plan for the university late last year, and then we jumped from that into two key things. First is the analysis of REF, and I'll talk a moment about how that informs our strategy. And second is the planning for the campus, again, which I'll touch upon. And these things will come together and form a new research and innovation strategy that we're crafting at this very moment. Now, we were hoping to do this a little quicker. You'll see that there's a little bit of a jump between 2014, the end of the publication in December 2014, and where we are today. Hoping to do that a little earlier. There's a couple of significant things happened. First significant thing happened, which is a very good thing, is that we got a new Vice-Chancellor. Our old Vice-Chancellor was phenomenal, and our new Vice-Chancellor is equally phenomenal, but a very, very different person. So we have a new Vice-Chancellor who's coming from a computing background, and also from a position as Pro-Vice-Chancellor for Research and Enterprise at an Australian university. So he's coming in with that perspective and a long and very distinguished career in computer science. Second thing that happened is some years after austerity hit in Great Britain, austerity hit hard in Northern Ireland. And so we moved into a period of quite drastic cuts across the higher education system in Northern Ireland, and we've been managing our way through those in recent months. So, as far as the elements of the strategy, there's two elements that I'd like to pick on today. Clearly, any research and innovation strategy at any one of your universities will pick up on all of these various elements. Principally, these things are about people. Who feed, quality, support research students, who engage and collaborate internationally. Two elements I wanted to talk about are impact, engagement, and entrepreneurship, and also on the infrastructure that supports those people. But beyond that, there are a number of other internal enablers, the investments, and all of this feeds together to provide a research culture that, again, provides a supportive environment for academic researchers. So if I can talk for a moment about impact and innovation. Essentially what I'm trying to get out of this strategy is a means whereby we are providing an innovative environment that provides impact within the university, working alongside others, and with clearly identified and measurable outcomes. We're looking for co-creation of knowledge. So historically, we, like many other universities, would have provided for a technology commercialization process that captured intellectual property, validated it, developed it, commercialized it, and so on. So it's quite a linear process after a fashion. What we're looking for is more co-creation. Now, I say that to highlight that the IT systems out there do not easily support many of these objectives. And I'll pull this together in the conclusions. Third is, to look at the impact of outcomes on society and the economy, to develop graduate entrepreneurial skills, and also back to our regional mission. You have a university which is the largest university on the island of Ireland, spread right across Northern Ireland. It has a very strong footprint. Northern Ireland has a population of 1.8 million people. That's less than Leeds. You look at the imprint that a university of that size will have on a region of that size. It is significant, and thus we take very, very seriously how our actions are going to have an impact on the fortunes of the economy and society right across Northern Ireland. And this is one of the goals of that research strategy. Now, historically, to talk about defibrillation for a moment, 2 years ago, if I was giving this presentation or any presentation, at some point in that presentation I would have talked about defibrillation. So defibrillation, portable cardiac defibrillation, was a method and had a series of technologies that were developed from the 1960s in Northern Ireland, and many of our academics would have worked in this area. And we could have said, and can still say today, that anybody who has a benefit of using one of these things, or has the misfortune of having to use one of these things, will have benefited from our research at some point in our past. So we have licensed technologies in the area, we've done research, we provide consultancy, and we've started companies in this area. And indeed, one of our early spin-outs in this area was sold last Tuesday, and it would have been the largest spin-out exit in the history of Northern Ireland. That was last Tuesday, and again, it was another defibrillator company. So the pathway there is pretty straightforward. You can audit the benefits, you can look at the use of those technologies, you can look at the research that underpins it all, you can look at the path of the patents and where they, and all the places around the world that they end up getting embodied within these types of devices. I'll give you another example, a software example. So this is Sophia Search Limited. This was a collaborative research project with St. Petersburg State University. It was a Framework 5 project that spawned some patents in semantic search. Again, those patents ended up with the university. A company is formed around them. We raised money. The company then went on to pull together Northern Ireland's largest ever private angel-led investment in any company in Northern Ireland's history. That was only a few years ago. The company is now located between St. Petersburg, Belfast, and Silicon Valley. Again, there's a very simple pathway here. There's clear collaborative research, there's patents, there is a company that raises money. We can track where that technology is being used. Third example is a little odd in that it was a student project to build a ticketing application within the university. The company was called Get Invited. We had some students, some postgraduate students studying in interactive multimedia design. We tasked those students with developing a product that was better than Eventbrite that we could deploy across the university for event management and ticketing. They managed to achieve that. They started up a company a couple of years ago. It was only the second student project that we made a venture capital investment into. And by last March, a month after the company had started, they were turning over £1,000 a minute. And the four of them had, the four in the team when the company started, had a combined age of less than 100 years old. They were, and none of them were alive when the web was invented, which is just blows my mind. Okay, but so these are, again, it's an interesting example. It wasn't born out of research, but born out of teaching, and has had a dramatic impact as that company continues to grow in Northern Ireland. It has an impact on the fortunes of the economy and has benefited the computing sector in Northern Ireland. Now, moving into this role, things become very, very different. So when you start to look at impact, we start to think about two different things. The two real standout impact case studies at Ulster for me were, one was in transitional justice and the other was in photography, where it's in art and design. So the first is clearly in Northern Ireland we have experienced quite a significant level of conflict in Northern Ireland. We have a legal research group, a law research group, who were looking at conflict, looking at transitional justice, and looking for examples right around the world. So whether they be in Colombia, Basque Country, in various countries across Africa, and applying the knowledge of the legal process of transitional justice from one place to another. So that was probably our best impact case study across the university. The other real standout one was in photography. We had a very distinguished professor and head of the Belfast School of Art within the university, who's a very, very well-known photographer, takes commissions from National Geographic, Time Magazine, and others, who spent time in villages across America looking at clusters of convicted paedophiles and photographing their homes. That was one of our most prestigious impact case studies. Now, when you get to the measurement of this, and when you look at how you manage the data that underpins that impact case study, things get really, really difficult. So one of the things we got involved in then was, I'll not dwell on the impact element of REF. This is something that will be familiar to many of you. What we did was we brought in ISIS Enterprise, who did a phenomenal job. Very, 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 very pleased to be working with them at Oxford. Really to do three things. One was to look at the relationship between innovation and impact within the university. Secondly was to look at the best practice around the UK in supporting impact. And third was to make some recommendations on how we do this whole thing better. Now, what they found was a lot of things that you would have expected them to find. So they looked at the success factors, the things that were good about what was going on at Ulster. So, you know, it's the quality of the research base, there's a clear applied focus on a lot of the research that we conduct within the university. There's top-down support, so our previous Vice-Chancellor, our new Vice-Chancellor, our Pro-Vice-Chancellors were clearly very, very focused on this, on the applied focus of the university, and that has benefited our impact agenda enormously. The third was the administrative support was good, and so you had a team of people within what was a research office going to extraordinary length to support the REF submission. But there's some challenges in there. First is the awareness, making sure there's a consistency of approach and consistency of support right across the university for impact, aligning targets and KPIs, which is problematic. And third is getting a joined-up strategy that will provide support right across the academic base. Now, when we looked outside the university, when we looked at what your universities were doing, we found a number of other similar things that echoed challenges that we had. So first was the resourcing requirements and the high cost of participating in the assessment process, pulling together the evidence to support impact, and also the need to collect the data whilst it is being produced. Now, in one hand, that's pretty straightforward if you're licensing out defibrillator patents, or if patents are going to end up in defibrillators. On another hand, that is not so easy if you're engaged in providing advice to foreign governments on their post-conflict legal frameworks. Those two things were very, very, very different. Now, what I wanted to do was to highlight these four. The reason being that whilst our library and our ISD, our IT support departments within the university are doing phenomenal jobs at things they're doing, within my own department, things that do not sit with either of them, I can see a clear line to £1 million worth of IT spend between now and REF 2020, which is beginning to get quite frightening. And I'll come back to that. So if we jump across into the research environment. So essentially, as far as a strategy is concerned, a research innovation strategy, what am I really looking at? Well, I'm looking at a number of elements. I'm looking at the physical resources in the university. I'm looking at the research spaces, the facilities that we provide out for researchers, the incubation facilities that we provide for those people that are looking to commercialize their ideas or engage in collaborative activity with industry. Looking at the technical requirements, the data requirements, and pulling all of this together to provide an enhanced research environment in which our academics can perform. Now, this is our McGee campus in Derry. It's the one I mentioned a moment ago, which is 150 years old. So this is an example of the campus estate we have in the university. This is the university that we're building at the moment. There are clear differences between those two structures. Now, what we're very keen to do is ensure that the environments that we're creating for the academics in these facilities are maximizing the opportunities that they have to participate in research and alongside business and provide a better student experience, both at whether you be a research student or an undergraduate student. So we have a large change program underway to do that. So if we end up doing the things we do in this building, which are great, in the same way that we do them in this building, then this building will be a failure. Now, on one hand, we have we can look at the structures and the organisation, where people are going to sit, and look at the adjacencies between different faculty members, and look at where the research streams are sitting between those different faculty members. One thing that's been really, really interesting is to engage in a process of looking at strategic unifying research themes that sit across the university and how those map against different units. So, for example, we have a computer science research institute working alongside the people that are doing cardiac defibrillation, doing really interesting work in connected health. We have our people in politics and law doing really, really interesting work in transitional justice. We have our people in art and design doing really, really interesting work with our computer science people looking at digital media and animation. So you start to look at where the adjacencies begin to sit between different faculty members across the university and how you can grow those out. But beyond that, what we need to do is to think about a number of different elements of that move, whether that be learning, teaching, the student experience, research and innovation, but also looking at the communications. How is this going to enhance community engagement? Now, my element of this, the bit I'm delivering, is, and this is, apologies for a very busy slide, really broken down into these elements. So looking at the research environment, as I mentioned a moment ago, looking at the IT systems and support for research and innovation, as I mentioned a moment ago, the spaces, how research impact and innovation can work alongside each other so that we can provide support to projects, whether they come from law or from computer science. And then looking at the incubation space. What does incubation space look like in 3 years' time when this building's open? What kind of research spaces will our academics want to be working in 20 years' time? Because we need to design for that right now. So, to pull together some conclusions. Essentially, all of this needs to add up to doing a number of things. Firstly, we want to make sure that this whole process is academic-led, it's student-engaged, and combines for a combined strategy and delivery of these actions. It makes for a long-term institutional commitment in that we have seen ourselves move from top 33% in REF to top 20%, and we can see a trajectory for the university in that respect as research grows year on year within the university. So what we need to do today is to put in place the fundamental facilities and systems that underpin that research, increasing research performance. We need clear goals. We need transparent progress, active monitoring, and we need to make sure that we're making ultimately investments in the people, teams, and the outreach that those people are involved in. So, underneath all of this, there's a set of requirements. So one thing that has been very, very obvious from the presentations thus far is that research management is becoming increasingly data-driven. Now, that's not just the data, the information management requirements that sit in the library. It's not just the computing capability that we need from our colleagues in our computing support departments. But we need tools. We need better tool sets to help provide for more granular performance measurement and benchmarking. The second thing is that whilst ref impact is, it's really about people and not technology, like any innovation endeavor is. The demonstration of that impact is the thing that is not just complex, but also proving to be increasingly expensive. And so as we need new ways of capturing, managing, and communicating information. And this is where we start to get boundaries becoming blurred between the roles in that regard between the research and innovation support people, the computing people, the library people, faculty themselves, and the students that engage with the whole system. And the campus ecosystem that we're developing is a very information-rich environment. We had one of the most difficult conversations we had when we were planning out for this £300 million campus was, what does a library look like? What is a library? So a library, and we're thinking of not just what the library services might look like in 3 years' time, but looking at what those might look like in 20 years' time, because that's the time frame we need to plan towards. And so when you look for the students, what they're looking for is accessibility of information. They're looking for whether that be to the networks or the data themselves. They're looking for flexibility across spaces. And that's beginning to become the trend within the academics themselves. But the thing we're finding is, as we move towards this campus, we need to make sure that we make a comparable consideration between not just of the physical environment, but also the IT environments in which we're all working. And if we can do that, and if we can do it in the way that we're planning to do it, I believe this will be most successful. Thank you. Thank you very much.